12 years old, I stopped going to school. I had had a particularly hard year of brutal daily bullying, and I begged my parents to let me drop out, and they let me. Now, my mother at this time was wrapped up in a sort of religious haze, and me and my siblings were already getting lost in the shuffle. She had run headfirst into the arms of evangelicalism and spiritual warfare and started her own reach-out ministry. She was a warrior in this circle, praying for the salvation of the world, which is an awfully serious and distracting responsibility. When I was 15 years old, I had been out of school for 3 years. I wasn't even homeschooling. I wasn't really leaving the house either. For my parents, it became easier to keep me home or with family here and there rather than take a chance with the outside world. I went to church camp every year for 1 week, once a year, and it was great. I got to pretend like I was normal. I met my one and only friend from that time period there. My mother decided it was okay for me to sleep over at her house occasionally. The best part about this is, she had deemed them safe because I met them at church camp. These people were nuts. Her mother had a fruit basket in the kitchen that had a banana vibrator in it. I didn't even know what it was. I just knew that when her brother turned it on and chased me around the house with it, I did not want it touching me. It was through them that I met my very first boyfriend, though. He was their next-door neighbor, so mysterious, and quickly became the love of my teeny tiny life. He had just graduated. He had a car with an earth-shaking sound system and a job at McDonald's. His nickname for me was Unique, which was a silly nickname, but I'd take what I could get. Sometimes we'd go to CD shops, and he would prepare by putting rubber bands around his baggy pants. He'd put them around the ankles. And then when no one was looking, he would stuff as many CDs into his pants as he possibly could. The rubber bands were there to ensure they didn't fall out the bottom. He was so cute, and he was a juggalo. Not a gigolo. For those who don't know, a juggalo is a massive fan of this Michigan rap group, and sometimes, or all the time, they dress up as clowns. Wow, I had hit the big time. Now, how does this work? How does the extremely sheltered, feared-for daughter of neglectful, yet controlling religious fanatic date? He started making the long drive twice a week to our home, way out in the woods of northern Michigan. If we went anywhere in his car, my little brother had to come with us to chaperone. My little brother was 11, and you may have heard about the asshole kids. He was the biggest asshole in the entire world. He had Jerry beat. And he was weird about it, too. In the car, he'd sneak up to your ear. He would get as close as he could, and he'd make this sound. Me, 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 me. It was way more annoying than that, and he had stamina. He could go all day long. Another little thing that he liked to do, we had this really tiny bathroom in our house, and for some reason we never really had a curtain up. It just kind of had a valance. But if he saw you heading in there, he'd give you like a minute or two, and the window was right across from the toilet, so you could kind of look out on the field like while you were peeing. It was very, very scenic. But if he saw you heading in there, he would kind of go around the other side. As soon as you got your pants down, you would just see a face come up in the window. And you were stuck until he got bored. And sometimes he would do a combo where he would look at you and go, me, 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 me. Anyway, he was our chaperone. But my brother still went to school, so we couldn't really go anywhere in the car until the school bus had dropped him off. Me and my boyfriend spent many months furiously making out whenever we had a second alone, and then I broke it off with him. And why did I break it off with him? After all, this guy was pretty much my only connection with the outside world and a major validating presence in my life. He'd write me these poems all the time that always used perfect AABB rhyming style. Real example, I look at you in such a constant awe. You see me without even one flaw. I look at you in endless infatuation. You look at me in vast fascination. Swoon. See, he wasn't just a petty thief juggalo. I didn't really have anything in common with him, but I genuinely loved this guy in the earnest, angsty way that 15-year-olds do. But I felt guilty and embarrassed because he was spending all his time in the country with me and my weird family and their friends where somebody was always loudly prophesying or talking in tongues. And there was this feeling, too, that for me, there was no future. My family believed the end times were near. Also, did I mention that my boyfriend was a heroin addict? Because he was. But breaking up with him plunged me into this incredible pit of despair and loneliness. It was one that I was already grappling with for a while now. I had a pretty steady eating disorder going on. I really think that it was partially just something to do. I needed a hobby. But it was also a way to have a modicum of control in my life. I'd also started cutting earlier that year. I didn't even know that cutting was a thing. I was taken aback when I found out. It wasn't something that I learned from a Lifetime original movie or 17 magazine article or that weird goth girl that you sit next to. It was something that I started so naturally, and it came from such a primal and painful place. That's such a hipster thing to say, though, isn't it? I'm an original cutter. If I'd have been 18, maybe I'd have gotten a barbed wire tattoo. It was the 90s. Journal entry, November 6, 1996. I've made an important realization. He doesn't love me anymore. I am truly all alone, and now I know I am going to kill myself. According to my journal, I raided the medicine cabinet at my grandma's. I took everything in it: aspirin, Advil, all the vitamins. I laid in bed and thought I'd just fade out and die, but instead I woke up feeling like hell. I went home and fell asleep for 15 hours, waking up to the sound of my mother banging on the door at 6 p.m. and threatening to have my father break the door down. It's incredible to me that this entire time, both of them were just on my case to get my act together. I was catatonically drugged, and they were both acting like this was typical no-good layabout teen behavior. I was pretty greasy because I hadn't bathed all week, so they ordered me into the bath. Take a bath. In the bath, I took another bottle of aspirin, washing it down with bath water. That fucked me up good. The short story is, we never went to the hospital. They made me drink raw eggs to make me puke, and all night they shook me when I'd start to nod off while they prayed and asked, why? They threw away half my CD collection that night. The feeling in my head was excruciating. I hallucinated. I had ringing ears for a week or so afterwards. They never told anybody. I went back to school that following year. This all happened a long time ago now. And how do I tie up a story like that? I don't think that it gets better platitudes are in order, even though it can and usually does. For me, it got way better, and then it got unbelievably awful, etc., etc. That's life. Somebody asked me how I could tell a story this personal, and that's easy. I have no need to be ashamed. My story is just as common as it is unique. Don't let anybody tell you what your narrative should be. I have thought a lot about how as modern people we live as islands, even though we desperately need other people who want us alive and who can reinforce our individual purpose. I think about my daughter and this incredible pendulum effect that happens so often in parenting, where we try desperately to overcompensate for the parts of our childhood that were terrible. And instead, we introduce new mistakes. My mother had very lax parents, and as a result, she had to deal with horrendous assault and abuse from men that she should not have had to deal with. Her teenage nightmare informed my completely different teenage nightmare. I think we genuinely all do the best that we can. People try so hard, and we fuck up so badly. Thank you. Yeah!